On today's episode of the Mark Titus Show, conference championship trophies are being handed out everywhere you look. The Purdue Boilermakers are once again outright Big Ten champions, back-to-back for Purdue, as first reported on the Mark Titus Show this offseason when everyone was buying the Michigan State hype, and I said that Purdue was going to win the Big Ten. Went out on a massive limb that the team returning the National Player of the Year would be, in fact, good this year. I was right about that. But congratulations to Purdue winning yet another Big Ten championship. They have the most Big Ten championships of any program, which I think people outside of the Big Ten might find that surprising. But the number one most Big Ten championships in Big Ten history is the Purdue Boilermakers. They have once again added another trophy to their collection. Meanwhile, Houston hangs on to beat UCF to clinch at least a share of the Big 12. The Cougars, the number one team in the country, were down for most of the game. Late rally, the curse of the Storm Chasers is what people are saying, more so Nikki Smokes. I think Nikki Smokes' inclusion into the Storm Chasers has made that one interesting. But yeah, we sent our guys to UCF. The Storm Chasers are now 0-2. Houston gets the big win. And wins a share of the Big 12 in their first season. And now people are saying this might be a legacy weekend for Nikki Smokes because the Storm Chasers have never struck out, and they are currently 0-2. And the only change to the Storm Chasers this year is the inclusion of Nikki Smokes. So we'll definitely keep an eye on that. Tennessee is your outright SEC champion. Another Dalton Connect banger at South Carolina, 26 points. He did take a ton of shots, but he's one of those guys that I don't care. As you know, if you've been listening to the show, I mean, if you listened to last show when Big T came on, yeah, Dalton Connect can do no wrong in my eyes. Him and a handful of other dudes. UConn had already had the Big East wrapped up, but distanced themselves from the pack even further with a win over Marquette. Marquette, of course, playing without Tyler Kolek. But yeah, UConn takes care of business in Milwaukee, breaks their weird-ass streak of, like, never beating ranked teams. I think it was ranked teams. It was like 21 straight games of like not beating a ranked team on the road for UConn. Very bizarre streak because they win national titles, and it reminded me of the thing we brought up last show that UConn had not won an outright conference title since 1999, and yet had won 5 national championships since then. But yeah, UConn absolutely rolling, looking very, very good with the conference tournament week coming up for them. What we're doing today, awards. We're doing awards. We're doing conference players of the year. We're doing conference coaches of the year. We're doing 3 All-American teams. I'm doing a national player of the year pick. I might even throw in a cold-ass white boy team at the end. But I might be a coward and throw like 8 guys on a 5-man team because there is a long list of cold-ass white boys that I love. But yeah, that's what I want to do today. I understand the regular season is not over, but I don't know. It just felt right. It felt right to do it today. I might change stuff based on what happens this weekend, but in reality, I'm actually not going to. But yeah, I even though the regular season is not over, I took that into account. And I felt like today was the day to do it because next week, the conference tournaments, the conference tournaments are already going on right now. There's literally basketball being played as we are recording this. March is at our doorstep. March is here. March Madness is at our doorstep. And I want to put a bow in the regular season, even though there's still some games this weekend. So we're doing all the awards today that you could possibly think of. It'll be an absolutely packed show, very fun show. Let's get into it. All right, a disclaimer at the top. I do not vote on any of this, actually. So I feel free to disagree with me, obviously. That is how this works. I will throw out guys I like. I will give out awards. I will pick coaches of the year, all that sort of thing. And I'm not here to say that you're not allowed to disagree with me. I just want to give a little perspective that as far as I know, I have no say in anything. This is I do not vote on I do not actually vote on All-American teams in terms of like the AP All-Americans. I have, I think, a Wooden vote, a Wooden Award vote, but my relationship with the Wooden Award is I think I'm just like a Wooden Award booty call. Like I don't actually know what's going on. I just kind of sit by my phone, and when they're feeling it, they call me and they're just like, "You want to come over?" And I'm like, "All right, yeah, that sounds nice." And that's pretty much it. So it's just me just kind of sitting there waiting for the signal from the Wooden Award. But I wanted to say that because nothing I say like really ultimately matters, and I think that's important because I don't want anybody watching or listening to think that my biased takes, the guys that I love and that I can't quit and all that sort of thing, if I'm throwing them on All-American teams, yes, disagree. Call me a dumbass. I don't care. But I just want you to know that I'm not really – no part of me is really like fucking these guys over. If this was like the NBA and you know, guys had it in their contract where they need to be first-team All-NBA or else they lose millions and millions of dollars, that's what I'm saying. It's like I have no influence over that, and I just felt like we needed to throw that disclaimer out there because someone inevitably is going to be like, how dare you not put Tristan Newton here? That's unfair to that kid. It's not unfair to the kid because as it turns out, I'm just a guy rambling into a microphone, and I don't really have any impact on like the actual tangible awards. Although maybe I should make my own awards. Maybe we need to get some plaques put together and all that sort of thing. So with that being said, without further ado, let's get into it. I'm going to go conference by conference with the 6 power conferences, and I'm going to do it in order of what's obvious, you know. So I'm going to start with like the most obvious one because it just feels like the suspense is just to get it out of the way and save the suspenseful ones for later. And so that for that reason, I'm going to start with the Big Ten and say your player of the year, my player of the year, I should say, my vote for player of the year in the Big Ten is in fact Zach Edey. Surprise, surprise. He has been dominant. He has been better than he was last year when he won National Player of the Year. Purdue won the league again outright, as I said earlier, 27-3. People are saying only the best teams in the country have beaten Purdue this year. That if you are in fact good enough to beat Purdue, you belong in the NCAA tournament. But yeah, Purdue is very, very good. I think Purdue is going to go to the Final Four. I've been very consistent with that through the ebbs and flows of this season. The trolling from Purdue fans towards Purdue fans between myself and them, and my father when he would come on the show, and he's noticeably absent. Although the Hoosiers have won 3 in a row, so maybe Dad's gonna start picking up the phone, as I call him these days. Through all the ebbs and flows of Purdue season, the one thing I've been consistent about is for Purdue is going to the Final Four. If you don't believe me, go back and watch in August and September, whenever the hell we started like really getting into preseason content. I said Purdue's going to the Final Four, and I've not wavered from that. And the second I see my bracket, I don't care if the dream team is in Purdue's region, I will move Purdue to the Final Four. I think this team is different. I think the guard play around them makes them very, very they've all improved, but it makes them a very different dynamic to how you view Purdue. And yet, in saying all of that, at the end of the day, Zach Edey is the guy. Zach Edey's production is insane, frankly. And you see games like a Dalton Connect where he has 26 at South Carolina. Zach Edey's gotten to the point where he can put up like 29 and 15, and you don't even really bat an eye at it. And you know, I don't want to say that his production is insane. It is weird because he's obviously at this point in his career a very polarizing guy, and a lot of people say that he's just tall and he's not actually that good. Other Purdue fans believe that he's literally Akeem Olajuwon mixed with Shaquille O'Neal and Wilt Chamberlain and like the greatest big man that's ever touched the court. Obviously the truth is somewhere in the middle, but the one thing that whether you enjoy watching him play, and I frankly don't, I'm pretty open about that. Like I don't think he's a fun player to watch play. You have to respect at least his production. His production is insane, and you know, Big T was on the show the other day. We were talking about like why can't Dalton connect, or what about Dalton Connect versus Zach Edey, and I was just like, man, it ultimately boils down to like a massive game from Dalton Connect just seems to be a ho-hum game from Zach Edey, and that seems to be the difference. But as it pertains to Big Ten Player of the Year, it's pretty obvious. I mean, there were other candidates, I guess. There's obviously going to be guys on the first team other than Zach Edey. But wouldn't that be something if it wasn't? What if it was just Zach Edey and nobody else? What if it was just 5 Zach Edeys on the all Big Ten first team?
How would a team of 5 Zach Edeys do?
That's a great. I think that's a great question. I'm gonna think about that a lot. They're gonna suck, but also
they could just like stand with their hands up like this and chain the ball.
They're gonna
full
suck.
court.
They're going to suck because defensively you could just run circles around them, but they're going to grab every single rebound. So if you don't make your first shot, you're not – I don't know. I want to see it. How do I see it? How do I make this happen? How do I do that? Like, I don't think it would be a team that sucks, but they're not going to suck that bad. I'm just curious. I think it might be as good as Indiana is this year. I think you just described Indiana. I think Indiana having all those big guys and struggling at times to have guys who can handle the basketball. I think that might be what Indiana's roster was. Zach Edey's your Big Ten Player of the Year, though. Honorable mentions, if we're going to do such a thing. Other guys that there's really no other argument. It's as obvious as it gets, but Boo Buie is had an incredible season. Terrence Shannon Jr. obviously has had an incredible season. The one guy I want to shout out is Jameer Young for Maryland. He's having a great year for Maryland, and Maryland stinks. It is very sad, the production that he is providing that is going to absolute waste. I would put Jameer Young on my first team, all Big Ten team. I think, I don't know if others are going to see it that way because team success does factor into this stuff a lot of the time. I don't think it should. I think he is the guy that remember when Jim Boeheim did the rant about Jerry McNamara? We wouldn't win 10 fucking games without him. That's Kevin Willard talking about Jameer, and it might even be fewer than 10. We wouldn't win 3 fucking games without Jameer Young. He's been incredible for them, and I think he belongs on the first team. I'm pulling up his stats. I forgot to write down all the stats for these guys, but I don't think people actually care, do they? Do people want me to read stats to them? I don't know. Maybe they do. Maybe people aren't actually looking this stuff up. Jameer Young is averaging 21 points a game. He's averaging 5 rebounds a game, 4 assists a game, shooting 34% from 3. I think he's having an incredible year for Maryland, and unfortunately, Maryland is currently 13th in the Big Ten, the second worst team behind an abysmal Michigan team. So I imagine he's going to get dinged for that. I don't know why he should. He seems to be the only guy that has – it's not his fault Maryland's bad. I'll just put it that way. So Jameer Young was never going to be a Big Ten Player of the Year. He's never going to be seriously in consideration, but I want to shout him out nonetheless. Zach Edey is my pick for Big Ten Player of the Year. Surprise, surprise. Coach of the Year in the Big Ten. This is interesting, actually, because there's a lot of ways you could go with this. The Big Ten has some surprising stories. It's not a conference that has – a ton of firepower, I wouldn't say, in the sense that like Purdue feels like the only legit national champion. But Illinois is still good. I think Illinois losing to Purdue at home does kind of take the wind out of the sails, but also Purdue hitting 8 for 10 from 3 in the second. Purdue couldn't miss in the second half, and like honestly, no team is going to beat Purdue if they shoot like they did in the second half. So I still think Illinois is really good. I don't know if I think their national title good. Other than that, it's a lot of mediocrity in the Big Ten. A lot of like, Wisconsin looked good there for a second, but they've fallen off, and Michigan State's obviously been a disappointment this year. So where do you go with Coach of the Year? Do you just give it to Matt Painter? So I'll say this before we really dive into all these Coach of the Year awards. I generally believe that you should just give Coach of the Year to whoever wins, whatever it is you're giving him Coach of the Year for. Like, the National Coach of the Year should just be given to the national champion. I've thought that for a while. I've thought that the conference Coach of the Year should just be the guy who won the conference. That seems to be a good measuring stick of like who did a good job at their job, because college basketball coaches are the GMs, and they run everything. And if you want to point to a guy and say, like, I can't believe he won 9 games in this conference with that roster, well, the reason he has a shitty roster is himself. He's the guy that puts it together. There are a few exceptions, and guys take over for a first year, and they have an unexpected great year in their first year, or there's injuries, or there's tragedy, or whatever else. There are reasons you stray from that line of thinking. But I think too now, in the modern era, it's kind of changed a little bit too with the portal and everything. That like it's not. People think it's easier to put together rosters because you can just snap your finger and get portal guys, but sometimes it's not. I don't know. It's a little dicier, and I think the good coaches are the guys that like think they have a good team. The season starts, they sort of figure out like what they actually have versus like what the recruiting rankings said they have, or the transfer portal rankings or whatever said they have, and then they figure out how to win nonetheless. So yeah, if you want to give it to Matt Painter, give it to Matt Painter. I'm fine with that. I think Purdue had a juggernaut of a team coming back, and I think like I don't necessarily think he had to do much to make them this good. I guess if you want to give him like a nod for bringing in Lance Jones in the transfer portal, that was a stroke of genius. Obviously, it's made a big difference for them this year. But my vote, and this is just an unbiased vote, I think you look at his record, he's 4-1 on the year. I think it has to go to Jake Diebler. I think Jake Diebler has done enough to win Big Ten Coach. He beat Purdue, beat Michigan State. No, I think what's ultimately going to end up happening in the Big Ten Coach of the Year race, I think it's going to come down to Fred Hoiberg in Nebraska and Chris Collins of Northwestern. It's going to be a coin flip. They might win Coach of the Year. Brad Underwood deserves a nod. Matt Painter, like I said, if you want to give it to him. There's no obvious choice, I wouldn't say. For me, the guy who in my gut feels like it's right is Fred Hoiberg. This is year 5 for Fred Hoiberg. Nebraska has not been particularly great under him, and I think it's easy to forget that Fred Hoiberg took over. First of all, it's a program that has never won an NCAA tournament game. They've had some good teams through the years. Tim Miles had some good teams. They had decent teams in the early 90s, but they've never won an NCAA tournament. It's a program that's kind of, I don't want to say famous for that, but like that's something that like until they do, that's going to follow them around. It's going to be like Nebraska here's the list of teams that have never won a NCAA tournament game. It's Nebraska. So he takes over during the COVID year. They win 7 games, and yeah, the COVID happens at the end of the season where they don't get a tournament. They weren't going to the tournament anyway. And that was by the way, I just now remembered that. Remember when we got Fred Hoiberg coughing on the bench? What a weird time. Do you remember that during the Big Ten tournament? And they're like
unknown.
They're like COVID is spread. Like they're like the Big East is canceling games. The Big Ten is like still playing, and they don't want to cancel. And then Fred Hoiberg's just sweating and coughing, and it's like, oh my God, is Fred Hoiberg gonna die on live TV?
Yeah,
that's what it felt like.
What a time, dude.
Were they playing Rutgers? No, they weren't.
No, we were. Was that 2020 Big Ten tournament?
2020.
We were about to play Michigan. We were on the court, and they pulled us off.
That's right. Yeah. But that was Hoiberg's first year. They win 7 games. They win 7 games the next year. Again, in like weird the first year was not weird circumstances in that COVID didn't hit until the end of the year. So like they only won 7 games. It was the COVID year, but it was at the tail end. I don't want to blame the 7 wins on COVID, but that's not an accurate assessment. But also, I think year 1 for coaches, you kind of throw out the window. They're trying to build their own thing. They're whatever. Year 2, he wins 7 games again, but that was just like insane. That's insane, just an insane time to try to be building a college basketball program is during a COVID year where games are getting canceled left and right, and God knows what's going on with recruiting, all that sort of thing. As the dust has settled, it does feel like Hoiberg's got something. And I think that's the most interesting thing to what's going on in Lincoln to me. It's less about like this specific team is good, this is the best team Nebraska's had in over 30 years. They are so fun to watch. They take and make a ton of threes. They have very balanced scoring. They are unbeatable at home except for that one minor 29-point loss to Creighton. Just minor, just a minor one. Other than that, they look unstoppable at home. And there's real juice to that program in a way that I can never remember in my life. And Tim Miles kind of got it a little bit. I know that the fan base in Nebraska cares about all things. How like they do go crazy. They'll show out for, as we saw with the women's volleyball, and you know they show up to see the football team when you know they're not the national power they once were. I think what Fred Hoiberg has done in Nebraska is an incredible job, and I think he's deserving of Coach of the Year. And I think I think he deserves it because of just kind of the build that Nebraska it's taken for him to get here with Nebraska. Where it felt like, frankly, like a couple years ago, it felt like we were all scratching our heads like, does anybody at Nebraska know what the hell they're doing hiring Scott Frost and Fred Hoiberg? Like, this is a yikes. I thought both of these guys would knock it out of the park, and they're about to fire both of them. Now that we have a few years removed and we have a little more context and we realize, like, looking back, it is kind of insane that the guy took over the job. And as he's like trying to build a program, COVID's going on. So yeah, now that like we're back to like normal and we can see what Fred Hoiberg's vision for this Nebraska team is. I mean, this is the best team they've had in 30 years, and they are very much a threat to not only win a game in the NCAA tournament, but go on a little bit of a run. They are probably going to be a 10 seed, a 9 seed. You know, that's not a very high seed, but it's a team that with the way they shoot the basketball and how balanced they are, they can kind of. I mean, they proved it against Purdue. They can beat anybody. The one issue that we have to worry about is playing outside of their home arena. The entire tournament took place in Lincoln. I like the Huskers to make the Final Four. Unfortunately, it will not. But yeah, there are a lot of guys I think you could point to for Coach of the Year. I would go with Fred Hoiberg, but I certainly understand if people disagree. So that's how I see the Big Ten Awards right now. Quick break to talk about our friends at DraftKings. Get in on the college hoops action with DraftKings Sportsbook, one of America's top-rated sportsbook apps. New customers who deposit $5 or more can get a no-sweat bet up to $1,000 back and a bonus bet. What's a no-sweat bet? It's just like getting an offensive board. Miss your first shot, you get another opportunity to score with a bonus bet back. You can also follow along what all of your favorite Barstool personalities are betting on by joining the Barstool Betting Group in the social section of the DraftKings Sportsbook app. I will be getting in the mix. Yeah, special announcement. I'm going to be getting in the mix. I got to figure out how I get in the mix on the Barstool Betting Group on the DraftKings Sportsbook app because now that March is here, I'm ready to use. There's a reason we watch college basketball all season, and it's for when March rolls around, we use our knowledge to go to DraftKings and find some winners. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code Titus. New customers can get a no-sweat bet up to $1,000 if your first bet loses. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook with code Titus. The crown is yours. Moving on to the Pac-12, which I think is the second most obvious Player of the Year award. Caleb Love at Arizona. I think it should be unanimous. I can't even think of like who would be in the mix. Like KJ Simpson of Colorado, I guess. But he has quietly been having an insane season at Arizona. And when I say quietly, I mean, when you say the words Caleb Love to people, they still picture 2 years ago against Duke, or they picture last year like North Carolina sucking and being a disappointment as the preseason number one team in the country. He's been incredible for Arizona. Arizona's probably they still have work to do. They have to go on their Los Angeles trip, and Washington State is right there in the standings, but they're in position to win the Pac-12. Caleb Love is. I'll read stats to you. I'll read some stats. Let me read Caleb Love's stats to you. Caleb Love is averaging 19 points a game. He's averaging 5 rebounds, 4 assists. He's shooting 36% from the three-point line. He's shooting 43% from the field. He's having the best year of his career by far, not even close. His numbers are up all over the place. The divorce with R.J. Davis benefited both guys. Caleb Love still has moments of games where he's Caleb Love, but Caleb Love also has moments for games where he's Caleb Love. Can we put that on a quote card, Cody? That was pretty eloquent right there. Caleb Love, I'll say it again. Caleb Love has moments every game where you're like, yeah, he's still Caleb Love, but he also has moments where you're like, he's still Caleb Love. There he is. Yeah, I think Arizona is a serious national title contender. I think Tennessee will eventually jump them for a 1 seed, but they very much have the horses to win a national championship. And for a team that is so talented and has so many guys that can beat you on the floor, Caleb Love is very obviously the best guy on the team. And for that reason, I think it should be unanimous that he is the Pac-12 Player of the Year, which is why I'm bringing them up second, because I think, as I said, we're going from most obvious to least obvious in my mind. Coach of the Year, also pretty obvious to me in the Pac-12. It's Kyle Smith from Washington State. Don't sleep on Mark Madsen from Cal, though. Like, shout out to him. I think in year one, the fact that he turned that Cal program around, and I think I said that on the show. When I saw Butler Cal, I think I said Cal's going to beat some guys, and sure enough, Cal won multiple games since I said that. But no, Mark Madsen did a great job at Cal, and I really like. I mean, they were as bad as a power conference team could be last year, and yeah, they got some impressive wins. So shout out to Mark Madsen for that. But it's pretty obviously Kyle Smith at Washington State. So I'm going to paint a picture for those of you who aren't aware. Washington State, Kyle Smith's team last year finishes 5th place in the Pac-12. They go 17-17. Not a horrendous year, not a great year. Obviously, right there, average whatever year, just a forgettable year. Not nothing too crazy either way. They lose their top 4 scorers from last year's team. TJ Bama transfers to Villanova. Muhammad Gay leaves for the NBA. Justin Powell declares for the draft but goes undrafted. I think he's in the G League right now. DJ Rodman, Dennis Rodman's son, was playing for Washington State, transfers to USC, presumably because he believes USC is going to be a better team. Whoops. So he loses his top 4 scorers from last year's team that won 17 games. He gets Joseph Yesufu in the transfer portal, who's a name that, like, well, first of all, college basketball fans should remember. He was on the Kansas national championship team. He was also on the Drake team before that. The year before that, he had a monster game in Mackey Arena for Drake in the NCAA tournament that was played all in Indiana in the 2021 tournament. Then, because of that performance, springboards to Kansas, wins a national championship. Whatever, he's transferring to Washington State. This was a big get for Washington State. They're relying on a guy who has a national championship ring, has shown the ability to be a playmaker. He plays 6 games, hurts his hip, and he's been out for the year since. And still, despite all of that, Washington State is 23-7. They are still technically alive to win the Pac-12, not only a share, but to win it outright. Arizona has 2 games. They are 1 loss behind Arizona. They have 1 more loss than Arizona has, but Arizona has 2 games left as of this recording. Washington State only has 1. So if Arizona loses both games and Washington State wins theirs, they are outright Pac-12 champions. They swept Arizona, by the way. And on top of all of this, Kyle Smith is doing this with a team. His leading scorer is a kid named Miles Rice, who last year, he's a freshman, who last year did not play because he was going through cancer, literally cancer. And he was a 3-star recruit. And he gets to Pullman. He is dealing with his cancer last year. He redshirts. He's now healthy. Great story in college basketball. He's back. He's feeling fine, obviously playing. And he is their leading scorer. But this is the guy that Kyle Smith is relying on as a cancer survivor, 3-star freshman recruit. He is their leading scorer, which I don't say, like, that's not a put down on Miles Rice. It's just like painting a picture of like what this coach is dealing with. And he's right there to win the Pac-12. So I think it's a no-brainer. It's very obviously Kyle Smith. I think there are other good coaches in the Pac-12. Like I said, shout out to Mark Madsen. I think Tommy Lloyd, obviously, if you want to argue, if he ends up winning it, maybe he deserves it. But Kyle Smith did sweep him, so I think it's Kyle Smith. I think it's very obviously Kyle Smith, and that's how I see the Pac-12 awards going. I think if you're in charge of handing out the Player of the Year and the Coach of the Year in the Pac-12, I think it's a very easy job. I think it takes 2 seconds of thought, and I think you write it down and you move on. In the SEC, again, pretty obvious to me. No surprises with Player of the Year. It's Dalton Connect. I do think there are other great players in the SEC. I think Janai Broom and Antonio Reeves and Mark Sears are all guys who typically could win SEC Player of the Year. They are that good to do so. But Dalton Connect is the guy. And I think the game at South Carolina, even though he shot 23 times and wasn't really particularly efficient, I think that's a great example of what makes this Tennessee team different. Is you're on the road against a team in South Carolina who is still alive for SEC regular season title. If they beat Tennessee, they're right there with them, and their title hopes are still alive. And Dalton Connect, there's just like a stretch during the game where he is Tennessee's offense, and it's not because Tennessee's offense was so bad. It's because he was feeling it, and South Carolina is throwing the kitchen sink at him. And it just creates a completely different dynamic with Tennessee. And it's less about – that's the thing with this guy is it's like less about the production. It's less about like, oh, Tennessee finally has a guy averaging 20 a game. That's exciting. And it's more about like when you actually watch the game and the flow of a Tennessee basketball game, the attention that he draws, the tone that gets set by Tennessee on offense is so vastly different than it's been in the past. And I think the fact that Tennessee was very good and has been very good for a while under Rick Barnes in terms of like regular season and having some players and all that, and this being the first, I think it's their first outright title since 2008. This is Rick Barnes' first title that he's won at Tennessee. For them last year, Tennessee last year, I believe, was, where did they finish in the SEC? They were 1, 2, 3, fourth. They were fourth in the SEC last year. They were 4th seed in the NCAA tournament. They were fourth in the SEC standings, and it's for them to now win the league. It's not all Dalton Connect, but it's kind of all Dalton Connect. It's kind of all like they have a completely different wrinkle to how they can approach the game, and he's very obviously the SEC Player of the Year for me. So that one's pretty easy. Coach of the year, also pretty easy, I would say. Lamont Paris, South Carolina. He's killing it in year 2. To have the Gamecocks in contention to win the SEC with how deep this league is in a year when, I've been saying all year I find the SEC the most fascinating conference in college basketball, which I don't necessarily think it's fully the best, but it's so freaking deep. And I'm looking at the SEC standings right now. Ole Miss is 7-10, and Ole Miss was always a paper tiger. We knew that in non-conference, but still, as a reminder, Ole Miss started 13-0. They lose to Tennessee on the road to snap the streak, but they started 15-1. Like Ole Miss was, goddamn, Ole Miss was 18-3. They're gonna miss the tournament. They weren't ever, like a lot of it was the non-conference schedule was very, very easy. But I'm not bringing it up to say Ole Miss is like a monster team. I'm saying that Ole Miss is 7-10 in the league, not that great at all, and that's what the SEC is. That just speaks to the depth of the SEC. They've won 20 games. You have a 20-game winner that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11th in your conference, and they've won 20 games. So the point is, with a Kentucky team that's very, very good, with a Florida team that's very good, with a Mississippi State team that was supposed to be better offensively, and still plays great Chris Jan's defense. With all that this conference has, and obviously Auburn and Alabama, for South Carolina to be in the mix up until basically last night for an SEC championship, that's very, very impressive. Coming off a year when they won 11 games, they were very bad. Lamont, like year 1, like I said, doesn't count. If you're a coach that's taking over for a guy who was fired, I really do think year 1 doesn't count. Because like it's just like an impossible position to be put in, that the program, if you're firing a coach, obviously the program is in such disarray that it needs a hard reset. So yeah, South Carolina was not good last year. Lamont Paris was the coach last year, and as much as you want to point to he was the coach last year. If he's so good, why were they so bad last year? Well, year 1, give him time to figure it out. In year 2, he is killing it. And South Carolina was. I kept waiting all year for them to fall off, and they kind of never did. And they're not going to win the SEC, but for them to stick around as long as they have and be firmly in the NCAA tournament is a testament to the job he did this year. So shout out to Lamont Paris for that. I will say Bruce Pearl deserves a nod too, and I think that Bruce Pearl. This Auburn team should not have been as good as they are, and Bruce Pearl deserves some recognition for that, because I still watch Auburn. I'm like, I don't know how the hell they're doing this. Like, Janai Broom's good, but my God, this team should not be winning as many games as they are, and Bruce Pearl has them winning. So he deserves a nod, but it's Lamont Paris's award for me, and I think that one's pretty obvious as well. This episode of the Mark Titus Show is brought to you by BodyArmor Zero Sugar. The brand new Zero Sugar sports drink from our friends at BodyArmor provides real hydration with no artificial sweeteners, flavors, or dyes. Whether you're looking to stay hydrated or recovering from a long weekend, BodyArmor Zero Sugar has got you covered with great tasting flavors like fruit punch and lemon lime. They are a huge partner of Barstool. We love BodyArmor Zero Sugar. They even got the PMT guys to bear it all in their new commercial, so go check that out. It is check that out. It is something. It is something. Love that commercial. BodyArmor Zero Sugar is available in stores nationwide. Head on over to the BodyArmor store on Amazon and get yours today. BodyArmor Zero Sugar. God bless them. All right, moving on to the Big 12. We're starting to get a little more debatable, I guess you could say. A little more. There are a few more candidates that could be argued in these Player of the Year races. My Player of the Year in the Big 12, and there are 3, they're kind of 5, really. I think they're actually a lot. As it turns out, the best conference in college basketball has a lot of good players. But I think the Player of the Year in the Big 12 should be Jamal Shead at Houston. He is the best defender in college basketball. He is an absolute menace guarding the ball. He is a guy who Houston's defense is in a league of its own in college basketball, and he's the reason why. He's only averaging 13 points a game, but he averages 6 assists. He's like a quintessential point guard who gets others going. Can still knock down shots. He's only shooting like 30%. I think it might be better than that, but he's not a great 3-point shooter. But he's a guy who you watch play basketball and you get inspired by, like, because his motor never stops. He will get a look in the NBA, even though he's 6'1", and that's probably being generous. But I think he has a shot in the NBA just because he's fucking tenacious and does not quit on any play defensively. And Houston's offense, their defense is so good that the offense feels not as good. But it's fine. Like, Houston's offense is good, and Jamal Shed running point is the big reason why. I mean, you surround him with Sharp and Cryer, and put those shooters out there around him. He finds the shooters. He's very much fine as a senior on this Houston team that he went to the Final Four as a freshman, I believe, right? He was on the 2021 Houston team. To be a senior on this Houston team and be in a position where he could theoretically say, this is my team and I'm going to run everything, and egos get involved and all that. He plays ego-free basketball. And like I said, it's inspiring watching him because his motor just does not quit. And I think as much as his offensive numbers might not jump off the page at you, just in terms of like averaging 13 points a game doesn't feel like a ton for a guy winning Conference Player of the Year in the best conference in college basketball. You can't deny his defense. And you watch him, you watch the way he guards. It's not just that he tries really, really hard, because if that was the case, there would be a lot of goofy-ass white dudes winning Conference Player of the Year that are, sliding over to take charges at the last second and shit like that. That's not how he plays. He plays with relentless effort, also has incredible instincts. I love the highlight reel that someone put together. I saw like a couple weeks ago of Jamal Shed coming around a ball screen that's being set on him, and then like guys are trying to like throw back from where they dribbled from, and Jamal Shed anticipates it every single fucking time, and guys still try to do it, and his instincts are just incredible. Averaging over 2 steals a game. I love watching Jamal Shed play. I've been a critic of Houston basketball through the years, not because I don't think they're that good. I just I don't know. I've talked about it on the show. It's not like it's just like it's not inspiring, I should say. Like that's how I would describe my relationship with Houston. Is like I don't watch them and think they're actually all that great. And I'm like, yeah, they're good, but I don't know. But yeah, this year's team has silenced guys like me and then some, winning the Big 12. And when you watch a guy like Jamal Shed and having him and Cryer, that 2-man game, it's kind of impossible to be a Houston hater. So I think Jamal Shed is the player of the year, being on the team that has won the conference championship, at least a share, I should say. I think he's conference player of the year. Kevin McCullough obviously deserves a nod at Kansas. Hunter Dickinson deserves a nod as well. Keyshawn Gilbert, the guard tandem at Iowa State of Keyshawn Gilbert and Taman Lipsey, also, have been incredible, and I think that should probably be the first team. But those are really the only 5 that I would even consider. Kevin McCullough would probably have the best chance of actually winning Player of the Year over Shed, just because his stats are so eye-popping. But Houston is better than Kansas, and even though Kansas did beat him, Houston has just been consistently great, and I really think Houston might be the best team in the country. We'll see. They're dealing with some injuries now, and we'll see how much that factors in. But yeah, I mean, Houston has been consistent all year, and I haven't really necessarily waited on them to fall off. I would have assumed that they were going to have a few stinker games because everyone else around the country seems to be having them. And outside of that first half in Allen Fieldhouse, they kind of have not done. I guess against UCF the other night, that wasn't great either. But they won the game nonetheless. And Jamal Shed has been playing awesome. Houston's awesome. He's my Big 12 player of the year. Big 12 coach of the year. It's I think this one's, well, I don't know. People are I think it's fairly obvious because it's like it's my brain. So I'm like looking at it, I'm like, this is fairly obvious to me. This is why I thought the way I did. I think TJ Otzelberger at Iowa State, inheriting a program in 2021 that went 2-22. I'll say it again. Iowa State 3 years ago won 2 games. DePaul this year, I believe, is 3-27 or something. And they are the worst. They might. Okay, I watched Louisville last year. I watched Cal last year. I've been to a game against DePaul this year. I think DePaul is one of the I'll say it, DePaul might be the worst power conference team I've ever seen. They were worse than Louisville and Cal were last year, for sure. This DePaul team is very, very bad. And I'm bringing up DePaul to say that they've at least won 3 games this year. Iowa State won 2 games in 2021. Now, it was the COVID year. It was a wonky season of cancellations and guys being out and all sorts of other nonsense. But that was the program that TJ Otzelberger took over. And they are still in a position to win a share of the Big 12 title. Houston hosts Kansas in the rematch in a game that the first time around Kansas won at Allen Fieldhouse. And Iowa State plays at Kansas State. So if Houston loses and Iowa State wins a share of the Big 12, which is absolutely bonkers to think about because – again, TJ Otzelberger taking over this program when they won 2 games. Not really having like Keyshawn Gilbert and Gilbert and Lipsey are obviously great players, but there's no you don't watch Iowa State and think of they're certainly not a team that's like overwhelming you with the talent that they have, which Iowa State fans might take the wrong way. I'm just saying, like, it's not like TJ Otzelberger is having success because all of he's just got 5 starting. His entire starting lineup's going to be playing in the NBA. They're just a culture program, just like Houston, and there's a lot of that in the Big 12, which I think, even though the Big 12 is the best program or the best conference in the country, I maybe that's why I'm not as into the Big 12 as I should be in terms of just like entertainment, because there are a lot of programs that are just like. I mean, Iowa State and Houston are the 2 best examples that are just like the whole team is buying into the culture of the program. They're just playing hard-nosed defense, and it's not to say that I don't love watching it, but it's like, it's not as sexy. But yeah, that for Otzelberger to do that at Iowa State, to have that turnaround, to have Iowa State ranked in the top 10 for this long stretch that they've been ranked, I think he's the coach of the year in the Big 12, and I think he'd look great in scarlet and gray. But shout out to Mark Pope, BYU, by the way. Speaking of Houston winning the league, stepping into the Big 12 in year 1, for BYU, I expected Houston going into this year. I expected Houston to compete in the Big 12. I wasn't sure if they could win it. Kansas was obviously the preseason number 1 team in the country. So there was curiosity as to how good Houston can be, but we all expected Houston to be pretty good in the Big 12, even though they were stepping up a level. I did not expect BYU to be as good as they were this year, and Mark Pope has done a hell of a job there, so I think he deserves consideration, and Kelvin Sampson winning the league obviously does too, but I think it's TJ Otzelberger as Big 12 Coach of the Year. Moving on to the ACC. My player of the year in the ACC, kind of obvious, but then Kyle Filipowski was murdered and came back to life, and Duke is playing pretty good basketball right now, so this makes it interesting. I'll also say Duke and Carolina playing each other on Saturday is an interesting wrinkle, and that gives me a little bit of pause, but I still think unless Filipowski scores like 45 points and RJ Davis goes over, it's got to be RJ Davis. I mean, Duke can win the game, but RJ Davis is going to have a total stinker, and Filipowski is going to have to ball it, which it's not nothing against Filipowski. It's just I think RJ Davis is having a magical season. I did a rant a month or 2 ago about how there's no stars in college basketball, or there's a belief that there's no stars in college basketball, but in my mind, RJ Davis should be a star. He's a 4th-year guy on a blue blood team that played in a national championship, had a very public what do you call it? A tumultuous relationship, it wasn't. I don't mean to put him and Caleb Love as though they hated each other, and that's why Carolina had problems. But that was sort of the story of Carolina's season last year. Was like, can these guys really coexist together, and all of that sort of thing. And Carolina was a talking point all of last year for all the wrong reasons. And, I think the redemption that R.J. Davis is going through and this Carolina team is going through, and he's averaging 21 points a game and shooting 42% from the three-point line. He's been phenomenal all year, and there is a sense lately that he's a little up and down based solely on he goes to Virginia, scores 12 points, and is 1 for 14, and then turns around against Miami and has 42. But I think he's been pretty consistent all year. He's been consistently great all year. I mean, his shooting percentages speak to that he's shooting 42% from three when you're taking almost 8 a game is pretty nuts. He's shooting 89% from the free throw line, and he is Carolina's heart and soul. And Armando Bacot is the guy. We've talked about it a bunch, and Armando Bacot loves Carolina. You know, I saw his senior night speech where he's like, no one's will ever love North Carolina more than I do, and he's the program's leading rebounder, and certainly has all the accolades. RJ Davis is the one guy that North Carolina cannot lose, cannot have play bad, or else they're in trouble. Like he is it. He is the guy that has to carry the team, and he's done that for the most part. He had one bad game against Virginia, but thankfully for North Carolina, Virginia cannot score the basketball, and it ultimately didn't matter. But yeah, I think RJ Davis is your ACC Player of the Year, but I also reserve the right after Saturday if Filipowski just like, I don't know what he would have to do though, because Carolina's already clinched a share of the ACC, I think. I'm pretty sure Carolina's already clinched a share. If Duke beats them, Duke also clinches a share, and I think they tie. But yeah, I don't think it's close enough to where one game is gonna really sway my opinion. But I'm also very nervous, TJ, about RJ Davis having a stinker and Filipowski just having a monster game, and then just sitting there going, I can't believe on the podcast I just said RJ Davis is ACC Player of the Year.
Well, Filipowski probably won't have a big game because of his tragic injury.
His injury, yeah, he's still battling through it.
You know that if he does get injured or something, they would bring that up.
Yeah,
like
yeah. Like he rolls his ankle. And like, that's the same ankle that he.
As if he didn't throw a windmill dunk in game.
Yeah. But no, Filipowski's having a monster year, and he has become a talking point for the court storm thing, but that doesn't take away from how good of a player he's been. PJ Hall is another guy that he's not really in the. He has no chance of winning ACC Player of the Year, but I'll give a nod to him anyway. Coach of the Year, pretty obvious to me. Coach of the Year is Louisville's Kenny Payne. I think you look at what he did last year and how bad they were, and the improvements that they've made this year. It's just an incredible story. No, I don't know who the ACC Coach of the Year is. I find this to be the most fascinating award in terms of all the power conference players and coaches and all that. I guess you give it to Hubert Davis if Carolina beats Duke and they win the league. I guess it's just like kind of the default thing, and you say that the season Carolina had last year, not great. To turn it around, to lose Caleb Love and kind of restructure the roster a little bit. Harrison Ingram comes in and Cormac Ryan comes in, and you get pickups like that have made a massive difference. As much as I talk about RJ Davis and Armando Bacot, that's really the story of why Carolina has gotten better is some of those role guys. They're still starters, but you know what I mean, like the guys who aren't RJ Davis. So yeah, maybe you give the nod to Hubert Davis for that reason, the turnaround, and for Carolina being looking like a national championship contender here, but I don't know if I love that idea, but then I don't really know who to give it to. John Shire had an absolutely loaded team, and they've been kind of a disappointment on a national scale, and on like Duke should have won the league by a couple games, I would say, and now they have to beat Carolina to win a share, so I don't really feel like that's like a story worth celebrating. Virginia is just depressing to watch. Virginia is playing disgusting basketball. They're winning. They're probably gonna make the tournament. But like they are just a chore to watch, and I can't imagine the rest of the ACC voters are gonna want to give the award to Tony Bennett after this season. Then you start falling into the mediocrity range though. So I feel like it's Tony Bennett, John Shire, or Hubert Davis. If it's not them, it's like, do we give it to Brad Brownell at Clemson for having a very mediocre season? Jeff Capel, same sort of thing. Like it's not bad. It's just like sort of uninspiring. Pitt's a little bit worse, I think, than they were last year. And it's like, is that what we want this conference to be? Crowning guys that are just finishing middle of the pack. The one interesting one is Adrian Autry at Syracuse, because he is in year one. And like I keep saying, like year one guys kind of get like a different lens that we view them through. Steve Forbes might have been in the mix, but Wake is limping to the finish line, if you even want to call it that. Wake is playing their way out of the NCAA tournament. Micah Shrewsbury is a year one guy that is Notre Dame's is improved, but I think Notre Dame's won like 11 games, so that would be an insane thing to be like, this is the coach of the year, the guy that's won like 11 games. I don't know who you give it to, and maybe it's just like whoever wins on Saturday, John Shire or Hubert Davis. Maybe it's just that. I mean, let's put some stakes on this game and say the winner is the ACC coach of the year. But I think as of right now it's Hubert Davis, and I think like his story and his candidacy is a little bit of an easier sell. Just based on like, year one for him, they go to the national championship game. He brings the whole team back. They're preseason number one. They have a failure of a season, and he looks inward and does some roster reconstruction and gets the best out of RJ Davis, and Carolina is not far and away the best team in the ACC, but they've looked for most of the season to me like the best team in the ACC, even though Duke might have a higher ceiling. So I think it's Hubert Davis. But, again, I'm very nervous about that pick getting thrown back in my face when Duke beats Carolina by 25 or something and Kyle Filipowski has 54 points. So that's how I see the ACC. Quick break to talk about our friends at Visible. You know trap games, right? Opponent seems like nothing to worry about. You don't pay enough attention. All of a sudden, you're down 10 in the second half. Wireless can feel like that, too. You sign up, you take it for granted. All of a sudden, you're stuck. You need a way out. If you feel trapped by your wireless, Visible is your escape plan. On the Visible plan, you get one-line wireless for just $25 a month, taxes and fees included. One-line wireless, $25 a month on the Visible plan, taxes and fees are included in that. Unlimited 5G data is powered by Verizon. If your wireless feels like a trap, find your escape plan with Visible. Switch today at Visible.com. On the Visible plan, you truly pay just $25 a month. Taxes and fees not tacked on after the fact. They are included in that $25 a month. You don't need a multi-line plan to save. A lot of carriers make it feel impossible to leave. Visible makes you want to stay. Even good teams can slip into a trap game. Great teams find a way out. Visible is your wireless escape plan. Monthly rate on the Visible plan. For additional terms and network management practices, see Visible.com. Now the Big East. The Big East Player of the Year, my God. The Big East has a lot of guys that can win Player of the Year, and they are as follows in no particular order. You have Tyler Kolek, who won the award last year. You have Baylor Shireman. You have Kadari Richmond of Seton Hall. You have Devin Carter of Providence, whose numbers are bonkers. You look up what Devin Carter is doing this year. I talked about Baylor Shireman last show about how he's one of the best rebounding guards, probably the best that I can remember ever watching. Devin Carter is like 5 inches shorter than him, it feels like, and he averages just right about the same amount of rebounds. He's averaging like 8 rebounds a game as well. Cam Spencer is averaging 15 points a game and shooting 50% from the field, 46% from the three-point line, 91% from the free throw line. The man does not miss. I don't know if that's enough for him to win Big East Player of the Year, but like he's got to be in the mix. Tristan Newton, his teammates, got to be in the mix. There are a lot of guys you could argue, and I'm sure these Big East fans are arguing who could win Player of the Year in that conference. My pick, I went back and forth a million times. If I'm being completely honest, this was the only one that I almost don't even want to say it because then I have to just live with it, and then I have to feel the wrath of all the fans. I'm being a coward, TJ. I need some strength. I need a swig of water. I need some strength because I'm scared to do this. I don't know if I believe this.
There is no way to answer this question without pissing off multiple fan bases with whatever you say.
Yeah, because all these dudes are I mean, incredible. They're all incredible players. And only one guy can win it. I think I have to default to Tristan Newton, and I don't say that like begrudgingly, like I don't want to pick him. I do. He's an incredible basketball player. But he has the trump card of one. He's the not just his candidacy is not just he's the best player on the best team. I do think that like when you watch him, he is magical. He can do just about anything on a basketball court. And if you go to Tristan Newton, you say we need you to score 25 points tonight to have a chance to win. He's like, done. I can do that. Tristan, listen, we're gonna need 15 rebounds out of you. He's like, all right, I'll find a way to do that. He sets up his teammates with assists, like he can do that. He can move the ball and run point in that fashion. I think he's the best player in the Big East, and he's also happens to be the best player on the best team. And UConn won the league by, what are they up, 4 games now? I think after beating Marquette. I mean, it looked like they're in the middle of the season. It was like a 3-horse race, and 2 of those horses have died on the track. UConn has a 4-game lead going into this weekend in the Big East, and they've already clinched it obviously and all that. But it felt like those 3 teams for a while were maybe not even, but it was like, yeah, that's the top of the Big East, the top of the Big East, the top of the Big East is one team, and the other 2 are very far behind. But yeah, I think Tristan Newton has not only the idea of the best player on the best team, which sometimes feels like a backhanded compliment and it feels like a default. Let's give it to that guy because we don't know what else to do with our vote. I think he's also like the most special guy. He's a big game guy. He's capable of a 25, 12, and like 8 assists game on any given night. He's one of those dudes, and that's not to say the rest of the guys aren't, but I think Tristan Newton is a guy that I trust, which is funny enough, like at the 14 months ago, he was like the one guy on UConn I'm not sure I fully trusted, and now I'm in a position where I'm like, Tristan Newton will find a way. Tristan Newton will make a play, and I think he is not only deserving of winning the Big East Player, I think ultimately he will. I think he's gonna get the award. But it is interesting because Tyler Kolek won it last year, and Tyler Kolek is having a better year this year than he had last year. But that's not how it works, you know. The crop of guys he's going up against this year are different than they were last year, and the Tyler Kolek has lost the trump card of being the best player on the best team, which he had last year, and he no longer has that this year. So, Shireman is I'm in love with. I love watching Baylor Shireman play. Devin Carter's has been great. I think like Providence is, maybe not good enough to really make his candidacy as strong as the stats might say it is. Cam Spencer, I don't think is going to win it. I think if it's a UConn guy, it's got to be Tristan Newton. But Cam Spencer is certainly in the running for making first team All Big East. The Big East is loaded. The Big East is so freaking fun, and all these guys are great, and I love them all. And I just think Tristan Newton is the pick. I think Tristan Newton's the pick. Lock me in on Tristan Newton. I did it. It's done. Let me move on to the next thing because I don't want to overthink this. Coach of the year. It's 2 guys. It's Shaheen Holloway at Seton Hall, or it's Dan Hurley at UConn. Apologies to Seton Hall fans. Apologies to Frank the Tank. I think the job that Dan Hurley has done at UConn, losing 3 guys so vital to a national title team, and to have this team in a position to dominate the Big East in the way that they did, to have people scratching their heads wondering if this UConn team is actually better than last year's team. That's crazy to me. And I know as this point has been brought up throughout the year, there have been a lot of people that have pointed out that like UConn still has a ton of talent. You're still like bringing in guys like Cam Spencer who are very, very good, and it's not fair to just say that he lost these guys, and like everyone that's stepping up and filling the roles for UConn were just guys who played on the bench last year. That's not a fair assessment of what actually happened. I don't care how it happened. It boggles the mind how a guy can lose 3 guys so important to a national title team, and not only not lose a step, but maybe gain a step. Maybe this UConn. I don't think they are. I think last year's team's ceiling is higher than this year's team. I think when last year's team was rolling, they were terrifying, and I don't fully feel that from this year's team. But it's very, very similar. It's very similar, and I would not be surprised whatsoever if we wake up on the morning of April 9th and UConn just ripped off another national title where they were never really tested again. So yeah, this could be. I don't know. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. But for Dan Hurley to have his team in this position right now, I thought UConn would compete for a Big East title. I thought UConn would be pretty good. The signs were there. The guys they were bringing back are good. Stephon Castle is obviously a 5-star recruit, and you're adding him to the mix. Like, it's not a shock that they're this good, but I felt like there was going to be some figuring out of the roles. I felt like there might be some speed bumps along the way, and there have not. They're at this point in the season, this team does appear better than last year's team did at this point in the season in terms of record and in terms of consistency and all that. So I will give that to this year's team. I think it's Dan Hurley for that reason. I think he dominated. UConn dominated the conference. They are the story of the conference. Even the situations where like Seton Hall and Creighton beat UConn pretty handily. The reasons we remember those games are not because of how well Seton Hall and Creighton played. It's because they did it against UConn. Like, UConn is the top dog in the Big East. So for me, it's Dan Hurley, and I think that one. Shout out to Shaheen Holloway and Seton Hall. They were better than I expected them to be, but I think it's Dan Hurley. So there you go. Those are all your coach and player of the year picks for me, which, like, I would say 95% of them are pretty obvious. I don't know. I'm trying to figure out, like, which ones will. Big East player of the year is the hardest. I think Big East player of the year. I think that there are a lot of guys who you could. I could be talked out of. I could be talked into, I should say, any of these guys. And yeah, I maybe ACC Coach of the Year is confusing, but yeah, a lot of them are pretty straightforward. Big 12 Player of the Year, I'm sure Kansas fans will be pushing for McCullough to win it over Jamal Shedd. Maybe he will, but as it turns out, a lot of this is pretty obvious. So I don't know. There you go. Let's do some All-American teams. So I did first, second, and third team All-Americans. This was very difficult as well. I feel like the top three were pretty obvious. I feel good about my first team. It starts to fall apart at the second team. I think the second team gets dicey, and I'm going to enrage a lot of people. But fuck it, we're here. Let's do it. All right, I'm going to start first team All-Americans with the Visible National Player of the Year. Visible is your escape plan from wireless traps. On Visible, get one-line wireless with unlimited 5G data powered by Verizon for just $25 a month. Taxes and fees included. One-line wireless for $25 a month. Taxes and fees included. Visible is transparent wireless, an escape plan from wireless with hidden fees. Switching to Visible is a no-brainer. Unlimited 5G data powered by Verizon. Switch now at Visible.com. This is the Visible National Player of the Year pick. And I want it to be Dalton Connect. I want it to be Dalton Connect so badly. I can't do it. I can't give it to Dalton Connect. It has to be Zach Edey. Zach Edey is, I said it earlier, I'll say it again. His production speaks for itself. Last year he won National Player of the Year, averaging 22 points a game, 13 rebounds a game, an assist and a half. He was shooting 60% from the field. This year he's averaging 24 points a game, 12 rebounds a game, 2 assists. He's shooting 62%. I mean, it's like the guy is as consistent gets in college basketball. I say what you want about his style of play. Say what you want about how hard it would be if I was that big. I'm sure I could do that too. All that's fine and well. We can argue about that forever, and I'm sure we will. But if you're just looking at pure production, you're looking at like a guy who sets the tone every single game. Everything Purdue does on both ends of the floor. Every time Zach Edey is on the floor, the other 9 guys on the floor and the 2 coaches on the bench are consumed with Zach Edey. Everything is Zach Edey, and that's really all you need to say about why he is National Player of the Year. He's the one guy whose gravity is just so immense, and everything, every decision the opposing coach makes on defense, it deals with Zach Edey. And the second he goes out of the game, the coach exhales. He can now like run more normal stuff and feel less of a burden on like trying to figure out how we're gonna, or do we double Edey? But we can't double because they have great shooters, and it drives these coaches crazy. And the second Edey leaves, they take a deep breath, and everything is a little easier to manage. And I think that's it. I mean, it's pretty much a no-brainer for me. I do love Dalton Connect, and I do think that Dalton Connect's probably the only guy that has any sort of hope or prayer of knocking off Zach Edey. But as it turns out, he doesn't. He doesn't really have much of a hope or a prayer. Zach Edey is going to win every National Player of the Year award, as he should. Zach Edey is my Visible National Player of the Year pick, and it's about as easy as it comes. And for a guy who won it last year, and had all the pressure coming into this year to perform at the level he did last year, and the way Purdue's season ended last year, he had pressure on him for that reason, because even though it wasn't his fault, he is the face of that program, and he is reigning National Player of the Year. And we've seen National Player of the Years come back. Oscar Tshiebwe came back to Kentucky, and Kentucky, by the end of the year, Kentucky fans were ready to pack his bags for him. So it's not just because you're a National Player of the Year coming back, it is not a guarantee that you're going to be just as good as you were the year before. And Zach Edey not only was just as good as he was the year before, he was even better. He is the National Player of the Year. That is my pick. Now, please get the hell out of college basketball.
It does beg the question, is Zach Edey a National Player of the Year merchant?
I think he is. I think he's addicted to winning National Player of the Year. I think it's like I hope he gets the help he needs. I really do. I hope he he's gone though. He's leaving college. Purdue's 27-3, dude. That's incredible. They had the Ohio State game notwithstanding, like the signs, like everyone wants to pretend like Purdue's going to flame out in the NCAA tournament. They very well may, but as a reminder, like the last couple years that Purdue has flamed out and been upset early in the tournament, the cracks in the dam have started showing already. Like it's not like Purdue last year was unbeatable, and then once they got to the tournament they lost to the 16th seed. The wheels started falling off in February, and they started looking not great. Like, Jalen Hood-Schifino goes into Mackey Arena and scored 35 on him and was absolutely torching them. And they lost at Northwestern, I think, late in the year last year as well. They started losing a few and not looking great, and it was getting dicey. And as they were entering the NCAA tournament, even though they won the Big Ten tournament, the warning signs were there. This year's team, again, Ohio State game notwithstanding, Ohio State, as a reminder, did beat Purdue. The Ohio State Buckeyes, who are 4-1 under Jake Diebler, and I think 59 in the net rankings, which is a better net ranking than some of the teams that were in the field last year. They got at-large bids, just as an aside for those listening. But yeah, other than that game, I mean, like they lose by 1,000 at Nebraska because Nebraska's unbeatable at home and was making everything. They lose at Northwestern. First of all, Boo Buie is the second best player in the conference, so like there's no shame in losing at Northwestern this year. But also, I'm just gonna say what happened. I mean they kind of got fucked. Purdue did. They lose in overtime, and there were a lot of questionable calls, and that's not cause for panic whatsoever. Yeah, the Ohio State game was not great for them, but yeah, they're not really showing the warning signs like they have in the past few years. So I find that fascinating, and for Zach Edey and those guys to be as consistent as they were, he is the National Player of the Year. The rest of my first team All-Americans, I feel like the top three in my mind are obvious. I wrote down three names, didn't think about it, and kept moving. One was Zach Edey, one was Dalton Knecht, one was R.J. Davis. I think all three of those guys are very obvious first-team All-Americans to me. I've talked about all three already. They were my picks for their respective conference players of the year. But, again, in a season where that has become a talking point for whatever reason, probably because of Caitlin Clark, that there are no stars in men's college basketball, I feel like those three guys are the three guys I keep going back to, saying, how can you say there's no stars when we have these three guys? And then all the people that say there are no stars just respond with, exactly. You're making my point for me. But no, I think they, beyond their production, beyond winning conference titles and all of that, all three of these guys have consistently all season been, for me, like must-see TV. And I say that about Edey, even though I don't love watching him play. Like it is compelling theater when he's playing. It is compelling to see teams trying to figure him out and all that. I just don't love his style of play, but I do enjoy watching Purdue play. So beyond him, like Dalton Knecht and R.J. Davis are both those dudes. They are the top two guys in the country that can go off at any given moment, and I think those three are no-brainers. I don't think it's that I didn't struggle that much with the other two. I just had to think about it a little bit, but once I did think about it, it all clicked for me. I think Kevin McCullough is a first-team All-American for Kansas. I think you're seeing that with the injury he's dealing with towards the end of this year. When he's out of the lineup, they lose by 29 at Texas Tech. They lose at home to BYU. When he's in the lineup, I still don't think Kansas is national title good. They don't have the depth, but if he's out there, they have a chance, and they will always have a chance with him and Hunter Dickinson. And I think he demonstrated his value and his importance to Kansas, and beyond that, like his production is insane. The numbers that he puts, him and Tristan Newton are the triple-double guy this year, but he's a do-everything guy. He also could, other than Jamal Shed, like if you really asked him to, he could be the best defender in the Big 12. He could be one of the best defenders in the country. He still kind of is, but like when it comes down to it and it's time to lock in defensively, he can swallow guys alive. He's great on that end of the floor. He's great on the offensive end. He does everything for Kansas, and I do mean just about everything. Kansas has not had the year they were expecting to have, but Kevin McCullough has, and he's been awesome. So I would throw him on the first team, All-American team, and I would throw Jamal Shead as well. I think Jamal Shead is deserving of he's probably the best two-way point guard in college basketball, and that's really all it needs to be. And he's the best player on the number one team in the country. So that's really it. And the team that won the best conference in college basketball. So Jamal Shead for me is a first-team All-American as well. My second-team All-Americans, I don't have as much conviction. I'll be completely honest, but this is how I saw it when I sat down and really thought about it. I think Kyle Filipowski, who is comeback player of the year nationally, certainly, no question about it. I think he is a second-team All-American, though. I think the storyline of him with the court storming thing has definitely overshadowed him a little bit, but his production on this Duke team is incredible, averaging 17 points a game, 8 rebounds. He's actually he might have had a better year last year, but he's still the one thing that's changed the most for him is his confidence in shooting threes. He's unguardable when he's rolling. The one thing I still fear with this Duke team, and I fear with Filipowski, and I do think the court storm thing is relevant to this point. I do think they're soft. I think it's a soft basketball team that when they get punched in the mouth, they don't like it, and they will pout about it instead of just biting their lip and punching back. But Filipowski's talent is very, very obvious, and he's had a great year, and I think he's a second-team All-American. I think Tristan Newton is a second-team All-American as well. He might have a case to be on the first team. But there's so many good guys that I would put Tristan Newton on the second team. I would put Hunter Dickinson on my second-team All-American team. Which I went back and looked at some All-American teams through the past, and because I was curious, Kansas had a lot of really good players, but how often if Hunter Dickinson does figure out a way to get on the first team, which his production-wise, he's right there. He is right there. I think Kansas didn't win enough games for people to really give him the push, but he's certainly putting up the numbers. When the idea of having teammates be on a first-team All-American team, of him and McCullough, because it did feel like those two guys could be first-team All-Americans for most of the season. So I go back and I look, and I found the 1998 All-American team. They were absolutely wild. This was the top 6 players in college basketball in 1998 were on 3 teams. This is a very funny oddity to me. So the consensus first-team All-American team in 1998 was Mike Bibby, Miles Simon of Arizona. Both of those guys at Arizona. Rafe LaFrance and Paul Pierce at Kansas, and then Antoine Jamison of North Carolina. And then the guy, the best player on the second team, on the consensus second-team All-American team, was Vince Carter of North Carolina. So North Carolina, Kansas, and Arizona in 1998, those 3 teams had the 6 best players in college basketball. And I don't think that'll ever happen again. That seems like that's hard to do. So Filipowski, Tristan Newton, Hunter Dickinson are second team. I think Janai Broome is a second team All-American. I think this Auburn team, and I say this, I don't know, lovingly, but I say this not as a slight. I just say it as the reality. I don't think this Auburn roster is very good. I don't think they should be very good. I don't think the guards. I don't think the guards are like Aiden Holloway's a freshman. And then you have a freshman guard he's okay, and you have KD Johnson, who Bruce Pearl very openly and publicly is I can't fucking stand this guy, but damn it, do I love him. And that's kind of seems to be his relationship with KD Johnson is I love him just as much as I hate him. So yeah, that's what Auburn basketball is, and beyond that, they have Janai. They do play great defense, but then Janai Broome is just kind of the guy that has to do everything for them. Auburn, they have 0 NCAA tournament teams 0 wins over NCAA tournament teams away from home. I do feel like a lot of the perception of this Auburn team is inflated by how good that home crowd is. They're 1-7 in Quad 1 games, and their one win was against Bama at home. So I I don't know how much I really trust them, but that just speaks to how good Janai Broom is and how they've been stacking up these wins with a guy who is I think he's right up there with the best defensive big men in college basketball, and he's carrying Auburn at times offensively. So I got Janai Broom on there, and then the last second team All-American I would throw on the list is Caleb Love. I think Caleb Love. There's a case for Caleb Love to be first-team All-American, and wouldn't that be something if him and R.J. Davis were both first-team All-Americans and met each other in the tournament? That would be very, very interesting. But yeah, I think Caleb Love is having a monster year, and unfortunately he plays on the West Coast and plays for a conference that nobody respects, especially in a year where this is the last year for Pac-12 basketball. So I think it's flying under the radar a little bit how good of a season Caleb Love is having, but I think it's worthy of second-team All-American nod. So there you go, Caleb Love. My third-team All-American team is all right. I'm just looking over it one more time to make sure I don't want to change anything. I would probably have Tyler Kolek. I think he deserves to be on the third team. Like I said earlier, he's got better numbers than he did last year. Marquette is still very much good enough to go to a Final Four and win or win a national championship. And he's not playing to end this regular season, and we'll see how healthy he is when he comes back. I don't know what that's going to look like, but he's been incredible this year for Marquette and was the best player in the Big East last year, and he's been even better this year. Baylor Shireman has to be on one of these All-American teams. I mean, this guy's averaging 19, 9, and 4. Creighton is a team that is I don't want to say flying under the radar, but I think Creighton is very much in position to be as good as they were last year, which is something I didn't think would be the case. Really, one of the bigger developments is Stephen Ashworth is starting to work out for them in a way I don't think he was at the start of the year. They lose Ryan Nembhard to Gonzaga, and Stephen Ashworth is the backfill at point guard. And I felt like at the start of the year, I was like, man, this is a massive drop off. But when Creighton gets rolling, holy shit, they are so good. And for a team where there's so many scorers, so many shooters, so many guys that can beat you, Baylor Shireman is by far the best player in my mind. No shade to Trey Alexander, Kalkbrenner is good. But Baylor Shireman does it all for Baylor for Creighton, and I think he has had a season that is worthy of All-American nod. So I would put him on my third team. I would put Jaden Ledee on my third team of San Diego State. He came out of the gate super fucking hot for the Aztecs. Falling off obviously a little bit. There was a stretch there like in November, December. It was like mid-December. He was averaging like 32 and 15 and 9 assists or something. He was putting up monster number. He is still having a great season for San Diego State, and I think he's deserving of All-American consideration. Deron Holmes is a guy that definitely belongs on one of these teams, and he might belong on the second team. That might be a snub. 20 points a game, 8 boards, 3 assists. He's shooting 38% from a 3, 6'10", 6'11", can put the ball on the deck a little bit. Just an absolute playmaker for Dayton. Dayton was a team I was super excited about a few weeks ago. Still excited about them. They're still going to make the tournament. I still think they're going to win a game. I don't know if I'm going to put them in the Sweet 16 anymore. They've kind of fallen off a little bit, but Deron Holmes he's incredible to watch, and he is very much a guy that I have circled as like, this guy could break out in the NCAA tournament. This guy could be a guy that like everyone goes, where the fuck did he come from? And those of you that listen to the Mark Titus show will be like, I've known about Deron Holmes for a while. But yeah, he might be a second-team All-American. That would not surprise me if Deron Holmes ends up on some second-team All-American teams. And then the last guy I'd put on the list is Mark Sears at Alabama. I've been kind of critical of this particular Alabama team. I think their style of play kind of overshadows or does a good job of masking, I should say, that they don't have quite the top-tier talent. They don't play defense. There's some real problems with this Alabama team, but every so often they can hang like 109 points on the board, and you're like, damn, this might be the best team in college basketball. Having said all that, Mark Sears is the engine for them. Obviously, he is relentless offensively. He, to run that offense, it feels like it would be easy because you're just basically shooting every time you're open. But I imagine it'd actually be difficult to get up and down like that and to figure out when you're attacking the rim and when you're taking shots and when is it my turn to shoot. Because when everybody on the court has a green light, the guy who has the ball in his hands must feel like he could just shoot it every single time. And Mark Sears being the point guard, I imagine that's a difficult calculation to make at times. Is like, if I have a green light, why don't I just shoot it now? So for him to be able to run the show and know when to pick his spots, when to set up others, and when to go get his, yeah, I don't know. He's the one guy on Alabama that it feels like he does have the top tier talent, and he's a joy to watch. So I think Mark Sears belongs in All-American consideration as well. So those are my first, second, third team All-Americans. It was much more. I don't know why I did this to myself. Nobody told me I had to do this, and I just did it. And now I'm gonna piss off a lot of people. Whoops. The Mark Titus Show is brought to you by Rhoback Activewear. This is the only thing I will be wearing all of March and the rest of the year for that matter. That first weekend of March Madness may be the best weekend in all of sports, and it isn't the same without Rhoback. First, Rhoback's performance hoodies are a total game changer. The softest, stretchiest hoodies in the game. They are moisture wicking. They are moisture wicking too. So when you're sweating out that bet or bracket buster, Rhoback's hoodies will get you through. Rhoback's performance Q-zips bring a new meaning to the word comfortable. They are the definition of versatile, perfect to rock in an arena or on your couch, however you're choosing to watch March Madness this year. These Q-zips are incredible. Finally, the Rhoback performance joggers, which I am wearing today, are made for March. They're flexible, allowing for easy movement and celebration when that buzzer beater falls. If you want a perfect bracket, you wear Rhoback. So check out Rhoback and use code Titus on Rhoback.com for 20% off your first purchase. RHOBACK.com, 20% off performance hoodies, crew necks, and joggers, and more with code Titus. If I were you, I would be prepared to buy a lot because I promise you're going to go back and buy more. So first order, 20% off, code Titus, RHOBACK.com, Rhoback.com. All right, before we get out of here, I know it's a long show, but I'd be remiss if we didn't do the cold-ass white boy team. Because this was a theme all season, and
this might be more important than anything else.
Yeah, that's why I saved it for last. Yeah. A lot of people smashing the skip 30 seconds button on this show, trying to get to the cold ass white boys. All right, now this is. I'm gonna say this: Dalton Knecht is a lock, Baylor Shireman is a lock, and Cam Spencer is a lock. Those three absolutely belong on the team. I think. So we're doing a 5-man team. I think Reed Shepherd is also a lock. I think Tyler Kolek is a lock, and I think Braden Smith is a lock. Now, here's the problem. I just listed 6 guys, and I want to do a 5-man team. Okay. Dalton Knecht is a lock. I'm writing down another lock. Okay, so
he's on the 0th team. Like you have a first team cold ass white boy.
Right.
He's on the S team.
Do I do it that way? Dalton Knecht is on the
white boy supreme.
I got it. This is my cowardly approach to this. Dalton. This is a reference way too old for you two youngsters. Are you aware of Captain Planet? Do you know Captain Planet?
Yes, only through other references, and you were. There was a Captain Planet conversation on the Yak recently. You're like, how do you guys know
How does nobody know Captain Planet? This is a core memory of my childhood. So Captain Planet was a cartoon that Captain Planet would try to he would fight like environmental disasters. There's an oil spill. We got to get Captain Planet on there are bad guys pumping oil into the water. We got to get Captain Planet on the case to beat their fucking asses. But the interesting thing, and I picked up on this at a very young age, the interesting thing to me was that Captain Planet didn't just exist in the world. He had to be summoned. So they had these like normal human beings that would wear rings, and then all the people with the rings would have to summon at the same time Captain Planet. Then and only then would Captain Planet pop up, and then he could go kick some ass, right? And I would watch this cartoon, and I would say to myself, why not just summon Captain Planet once, and then just Captain Planet sticks around, and like that's like just have him like why do we have to keep doing this over and over and over? Because there would be times where like one guy's ring is over here, like one guy's stuck and he can't quite, and they're waiting for that 5th guy to summon him, whatever. So there's your backstory on who Captain Planet is. Was like all these kids had powers: earth, wind, fire, water, and heart. Earth, wind, fire, water, and heart. They had 5 of them, right? And they had these rings scattered all over the earth, right? They all had their powerful rings, and they could do some shit with their rings. But Captain Planet was the guy, when you summon Captain Planet, he's really fucking shit up, right? I think that's what I'm doing with the cold-ass white boy team. I think Dalton Connect is Captain Planet, and I think I'm distributing all the rings. I think Baylor Shireman, Cam Spencer, Braden Smith, Reed Shepard, and Tyler Kolek are the Planeteers. And I think when their powers combine, Dalton Connect appears in the sky, and he comes to fuck some shit up. So I think that's how I'm getting out of this. That's my cold-ass white boy team is those 6. I don't know.
Deal.
There you go. Yeah, I can't cut any of those guys.
Cold is cold.
I mean, maybe we bring Reed Shepard off the bench because he comes off the bench for Kentucky and he would be fine with it. That would be a familiar. But dude, all those dudes are so. I worry we're not gonna have a cold ass white boy season like we had this year. I feel like this might have been the peak of cold ass white boys. I feel like it's. We should have appreciated it more. This is incredible. It's an incredible time to be a fan of the cold ass white boys. All right, before we get out of here, some shout outs. Shout out to Jersey Jerry for pulling off the Caitlin Clark challenge so fast.
Dude, he
so fast.
Is sick from 3.
Yeah,
like
well,
at the beginning, like his first run at threes, he was just Drano.
I do have to point this out. I believe in Jerry's shooting ability more than just about anybody. I told Jerry when he was like playing in this, he's like, "How long do you think it'll take, Titus?" I was like, "Jerry, you're a good shooter. I didn't say it was going to take 5 hours. I thought it'd be like more 8 to 9 range. I tweeted some math about 16 hours. Yeah. I was careful in how I tweeted that. I didn't actually think it was going to be 16 hours. I just felt like, I don't know. People are sniffing Kizzy. I felt like introducing some, oh shit, this could take forever. I was trying to hype it up a little bit. I think that's how the Jersey Jerry streams work. Is you need people that are like, dude, he's gonna fucking kill this, and other people are like, no, he's not. And I tried to play both sides a little bit. But the one thing I never questioned was Jerry's ability to shoot the basketball. I was not surprised when he turned it on. I was a little surprised that he kept the pace. I was surprised that like he kept that he didn't get fatigued. But he shot out of the gates. He was hitting everything.
Yeah.
The problem, TJ, and this is unfortunate. I wish this didn't happen. Right before we sat down to record here, I'm walking through the office, and Jerry, I hear, "Hey Titus, I think," and I just turn around and he goes, "I think I might be a better 3-point shooter than you." He's like, I don't think you can do it as fast as I did," and I was like, Jerry, come on. So now Jerry has issued the challenge. And I'm asking you because I want to ask you, TJ, how I handle this because this is becoming a common thing in my life in Barstool is I'm getting challenged by like 16-year-old girls that are playing in high school. I got Jersey Jerry challenging me. I don't know how to handle this because my head is spinning like, am I a pussy if I don't step up to take on all these challengers? But also it's like,
yeah.
Do I have to entertain the idea that Jersey Jerry's a better 3-point shooter than me? I guess I might. I don't know. I gotta go do the Caitlin Clark challenge.
You could let the tape speak for itself if you want, but in my content opinion on something like this, it's settled head to head, not he goes then you go, because then there's variables, there's different timing to it. Also, I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but Caitlin Clark scored all those points with a size 6 ball, and I think Jerry did with a size 7 ball, so I don't know if that changes things.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. I think if he wants to challenge you, it should be in some sort of head-to-head environment. Not.
I'm worried about the precedent.
He's proud of his time.
I'm worried about the precedent where it's just this is all I do at Barstool. It's just like I can't even do my job anymore because everybody.
Yeah,
that's
all we do at Barstool now is. Yeah.
I think that is the job. Now that I hear myself say it out loud, that is the job. But it's like, goddamn, is that all I'm gonna do? Is just like everybody, just a new person in the office pops their head up and says, "I think I could beat you in shooting." I'm like, all right, well, I guess I got to do this again. Shout out to Ryan with the rebounds though. He was the difference. I thought when I thought about the timing and I did I tweeted out this could take 16 hours. I was not questioning Jerry's shooting ability. I was questioning how quickly they could churn shots and how quickly he could get rebounds and how many breaks Jerry was going to take and all that sort of thing. But man, they were humming. They had a well-oiled machine, and unfortunately, I have to now do it and crush Jerry's time because he's called me out. So I guess I got to do it. Games that matter this weekend. The big one. It is the big one. Boy, is it. Ohio State at Rutgers.
Yes,
that's the one.
Finally.
I need Rutgers to lose. I need you.
Deal.
Tell Rutgers guy, I will personally donate. I don't want to get too crazy because I think we should probably win anyway.
I know. We're
what will
we're
I
not good.
What will I donate to Rutgers NIL if you lose this game?
$10,000.
Yeah, I'll donate $50,000 to.
Yes. Thanks, guys.
I need Rutgers to lose. I just need Rutgers to lose. And I think the sell for Rutgers, TJ, is that you want to get your season next year started as soon as possible.
Correct.
I think you're ready. You're ready to look ahead. So let's just end this season and get it over with. Ohio State or Rutgers. It's obviously a must-win for the Buckeyes. Rutgers has nothing to play for. Let us win. Just let us win one. Duke versus North Carolina. Carolina and Cameron Indoor Stadium is always must-see TV. Got to watch that one this weekend. And also, there's real stakes on the line. Like this is. I talked earlier about the conference player of the year might be on the line. The coach of the year might be on the line. Certainly, the conference championship is on the line. If Duke wins, they get a share. If they don't, Carolina's the outright champion. So I should double-check that I have that correct, but I'm pretty sure that's the situation in the ACC right now. Yeah, Carolina is a game up on Duke, and there's one game to go. So that's how that would work. Kansas is at Houston. Houston has already clinched a share, but they could win it outright if they beat Kansas, and what a way to do it on their home court to beat the team that has run the conference for so many years, decades really. To end the season beating Kansas and cutting down nets and being declared outright Big 12 champions, that would be something. But that's a game that matters because if Houston loses, Iowa State can still get a share of the Big 12 title. So Kansas at Houston is going to be – and beyond that, Kansas could use this game as a springboard at entering conference tournament and the NCAA tournament as well. That Kansas is kind of, as McCullough's getting back into the fold, and they're sort of running on fumes because they have depth issues, but also trying to galvanize for one last push. That's a big game this weekend. Creighton at Villanova. Villanova is on the bubble, but then off the bubble, but then back on the bubble, but then off the bubble. I'm not really sure where they are at right now in terms of bubble. I think they're on the right side of the bubble, but they just lost badly, so maybe they're back on the bubble. Who the hell knows? Great opportunity for Villanova, though, with Creighton coming in. Kentucky at Tennessee. Tennessee's already clinched everything, but it is a rivalry game, and Kentucky, kind of what I said about Kansas, I think Kentucky needs some any sort of confidence boost they can get, any sort of reps, we'll call it, against actual national title caliber teams are very important for this Kentucky team, just to remind themselves, yes, we are as good as any team in the country. So they can go into Knoxville. Maybe it's not even important that they win, but they just need to remind themselves that they are legit and that defense does matter. And I'll be watching that game for sure. Arizona at UCLA on Friday with Pac-12 title implications. And then finally the two games that the Storm Chasers that Zob told us on the Yak, so I'm not breaking news, right? Like this is now public. The Storm Chasers will be at Xavier for the Marquette Xavier game on Saturday, and they will be at Iowa for the Illinois at Iowa game on Sunday. And I think they have to get one. They have to get one. My fear, has this ever happened? Have they ever gone to a game, the team that they were at won, and then the court storm didn't happen?
Yes, they went to a Seton Hall game that they won, and the Prudential Center is very, very anti-court storm, so they got blocked from that. That was Caleb and Roan the first year, I think, and then the next year they got arrested trying to storm at UConn.
Because my fear is I don't know how. I don't want to put that out there. I'm not trying to be a hater. I'm trying to be prepared here. Xavier and Iowa both. Like, I don't know if they win these games if they storm. That's a fear I have.
That's kind of the storm chaser difference, though, is that
they're
looking for the storm, but they also have to. They have to create the storm.
I got you.
Like they when they went to Indiana the first year, the kind of the vibe on campus was like, yeah, we could win tonight, but there's no storming. Like that's. And then they
brought the storm. They conjured up the storm.
So when they won at Rutgers in 2020, they should not have stormed. I think it was we were 1 point dogs against Maryland, who was ranked in the top 10. They conjured a storm. I
feel better about it then because I was worried about that. But yeah, these are legacy games for Nicky Smokes. We'll just say it.
Dude.
Yeah, legacy
Yes.
games. He's gotta win one of them. He's gotta win one. You can't go 0-4. Yeah, that would be tough. And then Arch Madness starts today. It started today. But those of you listening on Friday, all the top teams in the Missouri Valley are starting on Friday. It's my favorite tournament that goes on during this week, and I'm fired up about it because Drake and Indiana State are two teams that I both believe should be in the NCAA tournament. But Bradley could be a bid stealer. Northern Iowa is a program, is a brand that people are very familiar with because of some of their NCAA tournaments in the past. So those are the top 4 seeds in the Missouri Valley. I'm fired up to watch that. Starting tomorrow, those top 4 teams will start playing, and we'll get some good matchups in that one. So I'll be watching that this weekend as well. Enjoy the weekend, last regular season weekend of college basketball. You got something, TJ?
Did you see the pinwheel's back?
The Big Ten tournament pinwheel?
The Big Ten tournament
Let's
pinwheel
go.
is back.
Let's go.
They bullied them into
That's
bringing it
good.
back.
Thank God, dude. That was – let's go.
I don't know if they intended to announce it, but the Big Ten women's basketball account tweeted out a picture because their tournament's starting, I guess, and the pinwheel's in.
Let's
on
go,
the
dude.
scoreboard.
That's big time.
Yeah.
I needed that. I really did.
Next
That
year,
changes
the
everything.
pinwheel's going to be insane.
No, what a pinwheel. That's going to be an all-time pinwheel.
Yeah.
I mean, we're looking at an all-time pinwheel. The Big Ten tournament's in Minnesota, and I just realized that like 2 weeks ago. I've spent this entire season. I frankly didn't even care. I was like, it's either in Chicago or Indy, and either way, I'm going to go. So whatever. I don't really need to look it up. And then someone said something like, you going to Minneapolis? I was like, why the fuck would I go to Minneapolis? And they're like, that's where the Big Ten tournament is. I was like, oh, shit. Probably should have looked that up. But at least the pinwheel's coming back. All right, enjoy the weekend. Last regular season. This was the last regular season show. Next time you hear me, my voice, we are officially in postseason across the board. Everybody's in postseason basketball mode. So it's an exciting time. And can't wait for it. Thank you to everybody watching and listening. Please subscribe. Wherever you're listening or watching, please do us a favor and subscribe. It makes a massive difference. Even if you're someone that's like, got to be completely honest, don't love the show, only tune in during March. Please subscribe for that. Just help us out. This is a big month for us. It makes a big difference for us. So if it's no difference to you, hit the subscribe button, and we would greatly appreciate that. Thank you guys so much. We will see you on the other side.